Hello, School Transportation Nation. Tony Corbin here. We're so glad you made it this week. This episode is brought to you by Transfinder. They are the leader in school bus routing software, and we have a special clean bus tip from our friends at the Propane Education Research Council, and a great interview with Antonio Civitella from Transfinder, President CEO, and also our keynote speaker from last year's ST and Expo Indianapolis, Tim Gard, who's a humorist. He likes to kind of poke fun at things, keep it light, make sure and diffuse those situations that may stress you out at work. So always good to bring in a little humor. And Mr. Ryan Gray is going to be talking with Tim. I want to welcome Ryan to the podcast.
Yeah, speaking of humor, how you doing? Hello, nation. Another week. We are now getting to the end of January. A lot of schools are still closed out there, Tony. From this Omicron nonsense.
Why, Ryan? Why?
It's, a lot of, a lot of the districts that we saw, they were coming out of the Christmas holiday. They said they were going to remain closed at least until Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, which was last week. And we're still seeing a lot of districts that have remained closed or have closed, not just because of Omicron. Well, because of Omicron, but not just because of the kind of the rampant numbers, but because of short staff. So many of those folks are sick. So what's been really illuminating to me is that you'd think, a lot of these districts would go to virtual. They're not. A lot of these districts are saying, hey, we're going to close for the next week or 2 weeks because they just don't have the staff to even, be able to provide those virtual classes. So it seems though, on one day the sky's falling. When I'm talking to Tim Gard, you guys will hear a little bit of that conversation a little bit. But one day the sky's falling, and then the next it's like, the Omicron numbers are getting better. So I know here in California they're talking about kind of a reversal of some of the numbers. I'm seeing some of those headlines from other states. So I'm hoping that similar to what we saw last year in 2021, that as we get into the spring months and certainly the summer, things will start relaxing. Because we've been talking about this, Tony. I really think that we've gotten to the point where we can't look at this as a pandemic anymore. It's endemic. What happens every fall and winter? People get sick. There's a lot more viruses going around, the flu, COVID. And then when things get a little bit warmer, things open up, the sun comes out, the birds are chirping, the flowers are blooming, and, we're out and having some more fun. So I just think that, unfortunately, it's something that we're just going to have to get used to.
Yeah, but I think there's confusion out there in the world, right? So, I know announcement was made in the UK that they're basically ending mask mandates, right? And then you have Biden on the other side saying, hey, mask up. And guess what? Cloth masks, yeah, they're not so great. Now you need N95 masks. And, they're sending out 400 million masks basically for one day of protection. It's kind of a little late, I think, in the game to be doing this, but it's totally contrarian to what some of the other people are doing in the world. So it's really weird to me that there's kind of this back and forth and, 400 million masks for one size fits all. I know my 7-year-old.
No.
Yeah, that mask is not going to fit her. So
about that. So that's one of the big talk about confusion. Those N95s are not, I repeat, not with a capital N, OT, not for children. They're not designed for children. They're not tested. This is on the CDC website, folks. We have a story on stonline.com about it, about the, them kind of saying, hey, really N95 or the KN95 provides the most protection. Then there's the surgical masks that we see. Cloth masks, I read an article. One way to determine if yours is giving you enough protection, hold it up to a lamp or a light source. If you see light coming through, it's probably you need some better protection. I have some cloth masks, kind of similar to the neoprene type, and I've done that, and I don't see any light. So it's, again, like you said, it's not one size fits all, both with the mask, but also the way that we respond to some of these mandates. They're not even really mandates. They're recommendations. But you're right. I mean, I scratched my head when I saw that, oh, great, we're going to get 400 million N95 masks. I'd love to see that contract. Is that a Buy American, part of the Buy American requirements. But yeah, what's that going to do? And you're right. UK PM Boris Johnson last week said, hey, we're done with masks, and they're done with a lot of the quarantining. So I think starting this week, that all goes into effect there. So certainly, it'll be interesting to see how the next couple months shake out. Because when you look at the trends of the positive cases, like in the UK, they're at an all-time high still. I mean, even it's gone down over the last couple of weeks, but it's still higher than it was back in the first days of COVID. Certainly, the Omicron variant is more contagious. Knock on wood, me and my family have not gotten it yet. Hopefully we never do. But it's, a lot of folks now are saying that, hey, most people are eventually going to get this. And to my point earlier, I think we're at a point where this is endemic, and trying to throw all of this money at solutions that maybe make us feel good or make some good news headlines, but really don't do anything in the long run. That's what we need to take a hard look at.
Yeah, I know we're taking a much deeper dive on this in the February issue, where we're talking about cleaning solutions, air purification, filtration solutions. But, I know we had a big news flash go out last week on ESSER funding, which helps you guys out there with the necessary funding to invest in some of these, health and wellness technologies. And hopefully that will give you the ability to access these technologies. But again, like I said, this is not going to be the never-ending gravy train. There's limited funds, and at some point, they're going to rein this back. So we'll see what that shakes out to look like. But what was kind of the numbers on that, Ryan? Some big numbers that came out, right?
Yeah, so I believe it's so far the U.S. Department of Education's distributed all $122 billion of the American Rescue Plan ESSER funds. So they've approved all those plans, all the 50 states plus DC and Puerto Rico. All of that money should be at least at the state level. I can't say that it's gotten to all the school districts. I know I spoke to some folks about it at our conferences in the fall, and even as recent as last month in Reno, folks were telling me they still hadn't seen it, or the decision's already been made that transportation is not getting into those funds. It's going all to the classroom. So certainly now is a time for advocacy. If your school districts are just getting those funds now, make it known that you can utilize those in your transportation operations, cleaning, air purification, driver shortage. There's a lot of ways that transportation can use those funds, but you got to make your needs known.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those big things, Ryan. We always preach it on the podcast. We talk about it in the magazine, everywhere. Transportation can't just sit on the sidelines and just do it all the way they always have done it, right? We're trapped in that kind of cycle of just saying, no, we're good. We don't need the money. We're functioning just fine. Well, guess what? If you got to be the squeaky wheel, you got to let them know, let's advocate for stuff. Now, again, air purification, filtration technologies, ionization, that's new. Nobody has it, or very limited fleets have it.
Relatively, yeah.
And now, should we have it, right? Is that a consideration that needs to be made? And I know transportation is very focused on, hey, we just need to get the kids from point A to point B safely, efficiently. Well, safety and health and wellness play a very close tie together. Maybe it wasn't something we thought of prior to COVID-19, but, I think it's a really big conversation that, if you've been holding off, it's definitely worth doing your homework, doing some research on this. And so we're going to try to help you out with some great editorial. You can go on our website, stnonline.com, for all the great information. And I know, Ryan, you texted me last week that there was a shooting in Pittsburgh, shocking and tragic. You want to give the readers some thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so that happened last Wednesday in Pittsburgh. It was actually at a private, it was a part of the Pittsburgh Public Schools, but it was a special needs academy. So it served children ages 3 through 21. And apparently two assailants approached a school van, actually. So it wasn't a school bus. We confirmed it wasn't a school bus, but it was a school van parked outside of the academy. And inside was the driver and a 15-year-old student. These assailants fired several rounds into the bus, struck the student in the chest, and unfortunately, that student was transported to the hospital and died. So very, very tragic. Nothing we ever want to see in the industry. In fact, I was emailing the Pittsburgh police that evening and said, it's one of those worst nightmare scenarios for our industry. In the last 6 months, we've had a driver who was knifed to death behind the wheel with students on board. Now we have a student who was shot and killed. Thankfully, no one else was hurt. There were no other students on the van at the time. But just, what a crazy world we live in. And, don't have any other details on, what precipitated the event last week. But certainly it's something that we're looking at editorially, and with, for example, our TSD conference coming up in a couple months, we're going to have some emergency sessions and some training available because we have to be prepared for the worst case scenario. It's unfortunate, highly unfortunate, tragic. But, folks out there, you need the tools to survive these types of situations.
Yeah, Ryan, I know you've been working really hard on the TSD conference agenda. And guess what, guys? That agenda is online now. You can go to tsdconference.com/agenda or click on the agenda tab under attendee. You'll be able to find the full agenda that we have for you at this point. It's built out pretty well. There's a lot of really great information, lots of great speakers, sessions. So really looking forward to that, Ryan. And any highlights at the show? Anything that's like a must see that people should go check out?
Yeah, well, I think that we have several things. We have Dr. Ben Springer from Wasatch County School District in Utah. He's the former special ed director there, and he's a nationally certified psychologist and trainer. He's going to be bringing Aspen on the bus to the conference. That will be on March 20th. He's going to be giving a 4-hour training. So it's going to be, it kind of starts with a keynote, and then he's going to be doing a bit of a dive into his Aspen on the bus, which deals with dealing with aggressive behaviors on the bus. So talking about safety and security. But what's really cool about this is, out of the goodness of his heart, he's extending a free license to all attendees to go on his website and take his courses. That's a $195 value. And he's giving a special rate. So if you want to get a district-wide license, that's going to be $995. So this stuff is not cheap, as all you guys know out there. I mean, I know a lot of school districts spend thousands and thousands of dollars to bring trainers into their departments every year. Again, you can get more information on tsdconference.com. So that's one of the big things. We have an emergency evacuation separate registration that's limited, but we're doing an on-site, smoke the bus emergency evacuation with wheelchairs and fire extinguisher stations and blanket drag and cutting belts. We have a 4-hour legal interactive seminar. We have grant writing. Lots of great topics. Head over to tsdconference.com and you can get all the skinny.
Excellent. Yeah. And we have that early bird registration deadline on the 18th of February where you can save $100 off your registration. So be sure and lock in that. Make sure and come visit us in Frisco, Texas, March 18th through the 23rd. We'd love to see you out there, guys. And, don't forget about STN Expo as well. We have Indianapolis. That is coming up this summer. It is June 3rd through the 8th. And we have also STN Expo Reno in collaboration with Green Bus Summit. So all the green energy stuff you guys might be digging into. So we'll have lots of that going on in Reno. And that is July 15th through the 20th. We also have our Transportation Directors Summit at both the STN Expos. So if you're a director, love to have you out there. We did a really immersive training. We bring in experts. We've got everybody lined up. All the details at stnexpo.com for all the shows. But, guys, we definitely work hard at STN and we play hard. We love to make sure we have a good time. But you guys got to remember, we want your voices to be heard. And this kind of brings me to our clean bus tip this week. And it's brought to you by the Propane Education Research Council. The future of school transportation is being decided now. now, so don't miss your chance to lend your voice. The Environmental Protection Agency is seeking public input about clean school bus program in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. The program funds alternative fuel solutions like propane school buses to replace diesel school buses and help reduce emissions in communities like yours. It's quick and easy to share your experience with propane school buses with the EPA so all the districts can improve public health, lower costs, reduce noise, cut emissions. Make sure and show the EPA why propane buses are part of America's clean energy future by visiting betterourbuses.com. That's betterourbuses.com. All right, guys, coming up next, I'll be talking to Antonio Civitella. Stay tuned for that conversation. All right, guys, super excited to have this guest back on the podcast, Mr. Antonio Civitella, President and CEO of Transfinder. Tony, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Tony, and everyone. Happy New Year. Pretty soon, we've got to stop saying Happy New Year. It's going to be end of January, so.
Well, there's lots of good things to talk about in 2022 that are happening, but I want to kind of roll back the clock a little bit and talk about 2021. If any of you guys read my article in the January edition, which is available on the STN website to go check out, I like to ask the question instead of how's it going, Tony? I like to ask, what's going well? So, Tony, what's going well at Transfinder? Let's talk about 2021. What went well for you guys?
Well, we are grateful and fortunate that many things went very well. Just on the 10th of January, I had a marathon, 7 hours meeting with the staff to recap 2021. And there were so many great news. We brought in 200 brand new clients, which is our most ever in one single year. We increased staff at Transfinder. We've now marked our 24th consecutive year of annual revenue growth from year to year. We were named best place to work. There's so much going on, but there's some cool things. Our routing product that is going to be 2 years old pretty soon here in the next couple of months. When you gather all of our clients' routes, it makes up 10.2 million miles of our routing system. So it's kind of cool stats. And we're also seeing a huge trend. We're now at 70% of our clients are hosted, and we're using Amazon Web Services. So a lot of things went very well in 2021, Tony.
That's interesting. So that's an interesting trend. So the move towards hosted services versus in-house managing your data. What do you equate that to? And do you see that kind of continuing to accelerate in 2022?
Absolutely. I think it's really peace of mind. Our clients know that they don't have to worry about where are the servers. What if they can't go to work? At this point, everyone knows how the benefits of working virtually, or at least have the option of working remotely for a certain day, whether it's a lockdown, maybe there's something happened and the school had to close. Well, you still have access to the data. So there's a massive move. And I got to tell you, this 70%, I would not expected that we would end 2021 at 70% of our clients being on that platform. The other 30 are on-premise. And I would not have anticipated such a fast move to that environment. Really, about 5 years ago, I think we had about 15%, 20% of our clients. And so it was going a good pace, but the past few years, massive trend. Everybody wants to be able to get to their data no matter where they are in the world.
Interesting. And want to ask you a bit about another trend that we're seeing and hearing more, which is kind of parent communications, right? Apps that communicate with parents, that get the kids out on the streets in a more timely fashion. And I know you guys have a product that does that. What are you seeing in terms of that trend?
Well, our trend, let me tell you, our product's called Stop Finder, our parent app. And we've been selling off for about almost 2 years. And we have about 15% of our clients, 15. And of course, the adoption rate, I think, is going as fast as it could be. But let me tell you, the usage is going off the chart. Just 6 months. I'm looking at just the past 6 months. Our parent app had 3.5 notifications, which means it notified parents 3.5 million times that, be ready, the bus is around the corner, or it's 10 minutes away. And yeah, some of these buses are running late, but it's really, again, peace of mind, knowing that, well, did I miss the bus? I mean, it should have been here 10 minutes ago. Well, then you look at our app and you can see, all right, it's about 20 minutes away. I didn't miss it. So I think what it's doing, it's easing parents' mind, but the amount of usage is skyrocketing. Again, we released it not that long ago. We're already at 15% of our total client base is using this app. We think this is going to be significant even in 2022.
Yeah, that's an interesting technology trend. And then what are you seeing as kind of the mega trends for 2022 as we roll into the new year here? What does that look like? What are you hearing from your customers?
Our customers obviously are having a hard time with the driver shortage. We know that. But they're also seeing that there's a staff morale issue. How do we get the staff to feeling better? And remember, if the leaders are feeling down and out, well, then you would think about how is the staff. So that's a lot going on here. So we've seen that there's got to be a better way to communicate with the staff. Clearly, recruitment, how do you recruit drivers and staff? I mean, as a technology company, we've always had that issue, and we had to pivot and try different things. So that we see a big trend. But how do we know about this stuff? So this is where it's a trend, is an opinion. We're launching a new offshoot. It's called Transfinder Informatics. It's a polling system. It's a system that, by the way, it's part of our routing system that if our clients have Plus, they get that product at no cost. So we surveyed our clients recently, and we asked them a very specific question. How has our system met their routing needs? And 70% of our clients responded that our solution help them increase route efficiencies, and they used optimization. And that's 70% of our clients said that's how they benefited from our system. Those are massive. We got other stats. 58% of our clients have come back and said they love how they could customize the walk to stop boundaries. Again, safety still has to be important. We've talked about a lot of different aspects of what's going on with the routing, what's going on with the staff. A lot of people are retiring. I'm sure you all know about this. But so how do we make sure our technology is meeting their needs? So we're polling our clients. And really, we are polling now with this Transfinder Informatics. We are polling the industry. Understand what's going on in the industry, whether we make changes to our technology. In addition, we share this information with the industry. And then remember, I keep talking about this FIO, figure it out. Well, there's a couple of things we need to continue to figuring things out, especially this driver shortage. So a lot going on. Again, collaboration and communication is something we're going to continue to improve and do a better job even with our technology.
I know you've been hosting some webinars as well over 2021. I feel like you guys were turning them out pretty regularly. And I think you guys just did a webinar recently as well. Where can our listeners go to listen to some of those resources that you have available that you're talking to your customers on?
Well, we have a place right off our transfinder.com website, and you can see all those best practices. And what's cool about that site, you could also see older ones, and you could see the type of conversations we're having about best practices of even just cleaning the bus, which those are things we had to figure out really fast. And now we've overcome that. So, you talked about this webinar we recently had. The attitude of at least our panelists talked about that, hey, we've had to figure out other things, even more complicated items, figuring out how to solve the shortage of drivers. It's challenging, it's tough, but we figured other things out. They're a lot more or harder to figure out. So there was an attitude that we'll figure this out, and together we will get the answer. And this is where our polling system, again, we are going to poll our clients, and our clients could poll their staff, they could poll their parents, and it could be fully anonymous. That way they don't know who's saying what. And that's really where you start getting the good information. And Tony, many people out there know me. I always say those things that Transfinder wants to know: the good, the bad, and the ugly. We know that there's always good things. We want to hear those things, but we also know there's some bad and some ugly things. That's how we make changes, for us to know that those things are out there. And I have to always keep emphasizing, you better be prepared. If you're going to ask somebody about how's my service, well, then you better be prepared to take actions, because don't poll anybody, don't ask anybody if you're not really planning to change anything in your operation. So I'm always going to emphasize that. Ask, but be prepared to make some changes, because that's why you did it. That's the goal. So a lot going on in 22 already for just the first month.
Thanks so much for coming on, Tony. Great trends conversation. Looking forward to seeing what you have in store for us for 22. Really excited to have you on the podcast today. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right, coming up next, Ryan Gray is going to be talking with Tim Gard. That'll be one funny interview, I'm sure. Can't wait.
We are now joined by funny man Tim Gard. If you can see him, which you can't out there in Radio Land, he's beaming his big smile when I said that. If any of you caught Tim's act at STN Expo Indianapolis last October, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. He had everybody in stitches, and the good kind, talking about how he uses humor. So welcome to the School Transportation Nation stage, Mr. Tim Gard. How are you doing today?
Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were just telling me off air, he's testing out some green and blue screen at his home studio there in Portland, Oregon, trying to up the ante there for virtual discussions and talks. Obviously, with the Omicron variant, everyone, this one day is the sky is the falling, the next day it's not. But you're obviously seeing a big demand for virtual right now.
Yes, I don't think it's going away anywhere in the near future, and a lot of them are hybrid events. What I've been trying to do is see what I can do that's a step above a regular virtual, maybe a step down from in person, but a step above a regular virtual with using sound effects, with different visual effects. And I call it's more of a visual storytelling. So I think that we need to always be modifying how things are going. We had to just realize the new norm is we should always be looking for new and improved ways to do what we do.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. We've been having that conversation here at STN. Go to where the people are at and what they're using. And so it's certainly an investment, but like you were saying, things are changing every day. Speaking of which, obviously, so you're a humorist, satirist, kind of a man of experience and kind of weaving the everyday happenings into your presentations. How has Omicron and kind of COVID in general affected you? You were talking about, obviously, from a professional standpoint, it's forced you to evolve. What about, I'm sure it's lent itself to a lot of new stories and a lot of new humor for your talks.
Oh, it certainly has. The thing is, I think it's almost too soon to be using humor with COVID and Omicron, all the things that are going on out there. That what I try to do, though, is to take and find ways where instead of getting stressed out and angry when you run into something, you try to find the humorous alternative. I have a friend in Portland here that has a little store, and he got tired of telling people to always put their mask on. And so I actually walked in there one day with a Jason mask on, and he goes, "No, you have to use a cloth mask." And so I had a mask it's like a devil mask with little horns and other things. And he said, "No, it's got to be a healthy mask." And then he started laughing. And he was so focused in on how angry he'd gotten. I think he just needed to be reminded that we have to take ourselves lightly, take the situation serious, take ourselves lightly. He just needed a laugh at the time.
Yeah, I don't want to give away some of your gags, but I still have a couple from your talk in STN Expo Indianapolis. So certainly, a lot of folks here in the industry, a lot of state associations and whatnot are trying to figure out what their next step is. I mean, certainly here at STN, we obviously did the virtual thing, and then we're back to in person, God willing, and fingers crossed and toes crossed. But certainly, Tim's a great person to come in and talk to your folks about exactly what he just said, how to use humor and not take yourself so seriously. You have a really good quote, Tim. I believe it's along the lines of, "I'm going to have fun. No one's going to stop me." So why don't we take a second? And first of all, let's go back. How did you get started? I mean, have you always been a funny guy? Did you always been, how did you become the Tim Gard that we know and love today?
I grew up in an Air Force household. I was an Air Force brat, and we moved every 2 years. And every time we moved, my older brother played music, my younger brother was in theater, and I became president of like everything. I was always class president or bus monitor or whatever it was that was going on. All of us had our things that we used to connect with people. And more than anything, it was humor for me that people have said Tim's funny. The aha moment was when I found out I could teach others how they can use it too. That it's not about telling jokes, because a lot of times someone is the butt of the joke. It's about learning to laugh at these situational stressors. And as C.W. Metcalf says, laugh not with ridicule, but with objectivity and acceptance of self. And when I started seeing that more, I started doing it more. And I have a background in human services. I was a welfare fraud investigator for a while, very diverse background. And when I went to work for the federal government with USDA Food and Nutrition Service, I had to represent the flag, they call it, where I go represent our agency. And I got to be known as the funny Fed, which is kind of an oxymoron, I guess. But I was able to laugh not at the people, and we never diminish anybody, but really laugh at ourselves and laugh at the government and some of the things we say. When I would show up and say, we're here, I'm with the government, I'm here to help you, and everyone would laugh. And they started loaning me out to different agencies, and pretty soon it got more popular, and it finally reached a point where people were asking me if they could pay me, and then a little light bulb went off. And in 1 year, I resigned from USDA. I started my own company. I actually got divorced. I moved. I mean, I think I did every stressful thing that you can do, and then really committed myself to learning the craft, to learning. I mean, I've studied old vaudeville. I look at radio, old radio, and they had people in hysterics and you couldn't see it, learning the techniques from the masters, and just slowly got better and better, and have averaged about 50, 60 programs a year since then, except for when COVID came in, and all over the world. Right. I'm Australia, Singapore, we all laugh in the same language. It connects us.
Yeah. So you, with a lot of your training, I mean, you've spoken with commercial airlines, hotels, Coors Beer, and of course the STN Expo.
STN.
So, I mean, we've got to be right at the top of that list of that, Fortune 500.
Right at the top.
But I mentioned this earlier. So obviously stress reduction, humor. I mean, I think most people know how stress can be improved with humor. But something else that you do is, and this is something that our industry deals with all the time, conflict resolution. I mean, we all do, right? Mm-hmm. Certainly when we're talking about, working with children, sometimes they have behaviors on the bus or part of their special needs, dealing with your coworkers. How can humor help kind of calm some of those situations?
Well, you bet. Humor, a lot of times I think of it this way. We never use humor to diminish anyone. We use it to enhance. And many times it's to change our perception. And I think the third thing is we've got to be really aware that words have power. When you tell yourself, I'm angry, I'm tired, I can't do this, I can't deal with these kids, your brain actually believes it up to a point. And that self-talk is very dangerous. So I think also the words we say, when you say to one of the kids, you're impossible or you're horrible, or, we want to use really positive language. The word why implies guilt. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? I think the words we use and then how we say them are very important. But more than anything is if you're running into the same situation over and over and over, and it makes you stressed out every time, that's when we need a solution. A cab driver, just how many years ago, was in Denver, got in the cab going to the airport, and this cab driver's going there, traffic and airport and traffic. And I said, how long you been a cab driver? 20 years. How long here? 20 years. I said, I don't know how to tell you this, but tomorrow at 5:00, it's going to happen again, and it's going to happen every day after that. Either don't do this particular shift or do something else. Don't set yourself up to fail if you hate it as much as you obviously hate it. You have to work to insulate yourself. And at the end of the day, let it go. You remember talking about do your dismount like a gymnast at the end of the day. You've got to let work stay at work and home stay at home for your own mental health.
Absolutely. I think that those are words of wisdom. And it's so hard. It seemingly is hard. I mean, I always chuckle at the saying that there's more muscles in the face for a frown than for a smile. You'd think that something like that, it would just be ingrained in us just to, use humor. But why is it that it's so hard for us to seemingly embrace humor?
I think they're habits. They're really habits. I was working with a group a couple of weeks ago where they deal a lot with people that are very angry, walk up the counter very angry. And I said, even when something happens, you take a step back in your mind, do it in real life, you can actually take a step back and reset for a moment. You're trying to teach yourself to act and not react to the situational stress. I mean, I think for some people, it's so easy to react. They don't stop and act. And then think about how you respond. Again, you don't just do a knee-jerk reaction. When we're at work, the things we say, we're responsible for what we say and do. And you can't just explain I was angry at the time. It's taking control of problem things like anger and really deciding if you can come up with something else. I mean, one of the gentlemen at the conference later said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Write words on the roof of your mouth with your tongue. Do anything but yell at the person. Try to stop getting angry."
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And my daughter, wise as she is at 6 years old, reminds me all the time the words of wisdom of Sesame Street. When you get angry and mad, when you want to roar, take a deep breath and count to 4. It's those kind of things. And I think that certainly when you do add COVID into the discussion, I mean, talk about stressors. I can't think of a bigger stressor that's affected us in certainly the last decade, but I mean, this is affecting folks more so in the last 100 years. So, you have something like this where it's this shift where all of society, the entire world is kind of under this weight. Finding that humor in everything, even the small things, is very important.
And I think it's consciously making the choice. My wife was locked up with me for about 1.5 years, and you can imagine what you've met me. I'm the same off stage as I am on stage. And I was trying to perform for the UPS drivers and the veterinarian that took care of our cat. And I had to get a handle on it and really consciously choose other outlets than being irritating, perhaps. I think that it happens, you just can't say, well, we're in the house too much together. Well, then how can you do things separately and then come together and talk about them? My wife and I did things like we'd cook and ask each other trivia questions and stuff and turned it into, instead of a chore, we turned it into play. And I still don't overly enjoy cooking, but I'd rather cook with her and laugh about it than do it by myself.
There you go. Well, so Tim, where can all our listeners find you if they wanted to learn more?
So it's the website is just timgard.com, TIMGARD.com, and they can email me at tim@timgard.com. I even have an 800 number. Most of the people there don't know about those.
Is it 800 Tim Gard?
800, no, it's 800 WYSIWYG, 800-657-3500. I think it's getting due. In fact, I think it may be kicked off today, but on my major credit card, there's an 800 number on the front of it. No. And I was paying for it for years and years. Nobody uses it anymore. So I think I'll probably disconnect it. But 303-378-4868 if they want to call and chat about doing an event.
Okay.
Love to talk with them. I'm located in Portland, Oregon. Beautiful Portland.
There you go. Beautiful Portland, the Pacific Northwest. Well, and you can also read about Tim on stonline.com. Again, he was out there in Indianapolis in October. Tim, it's a pleasure always. Thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing how we can use humor to reduce stress in our lives.
I'd love to come back anytime, Ryan. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, special thanks, Antonio, Tim Gard. We thank you so much. Special thanks to the sponsors, Transfinder, Propane Education Research Council. Appreciate you being this episode's sponsor. Mr. Ryan Gray, can't do it without you, my friend. We appreciate you and all your insights and all your hard work for the conferences coming up. Again, TSD Conference coming up March 18th through the 23rd. Lock in that early bird rate, $100 off, tsdconference.com for all that information. Also, get the best news and information about school transportation, stnonline.com. Lots of great stories we update daily, so go check that out. Guys, we love you. We thank you for listening. Make sure and share this podcast with all the friends in your network. Post it out there, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Nation, we love you. We'll see you next week.